That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Ramey. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. If you're looking for ways to quit drinking, you can go to thatsoberguy.com. Lots of resources there, more podcasts. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at That Sober Guy podcast. All the links from today's show will be in the show notes, so they're very easy for you to find. Very excited about our guest today. His name is Jason Wahler. And Jason is a TV personality, host, actor, advocate, and philanthropist. Is that how you say that? Did I say that right? Philanthropist? Something like that. He's appeared on hit TV shows like MTV's Laguna Beach, The Hills, Celebrity Rehab superstar. And after years of battling addiction publicly, he appeared on Dr. Drew's Celebrity Rehab and began a new life. And one of the things I'm really excited to talk to him about today is he just celebrated 5 years sober. So super pumped for him. Man, just seeing and hearing stories of, and particularly men who have came around and battled this thing we call addiction that can be so crazy and get on a new path and a new track of life is just a great thing. So, Jason, really great to have you on the podcast today. Welcome, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you very much for having me. I love the intro. I was appreciate that. Yeah, dude, it's a trip. 5 years, man. What a journey. You know, just it's crazy reflecting back. I mean, I really entered into recovery July 23rd, 2010. Obviously, I had some amazing times in there and some good stints of sobriety. But I had to go back out and experiment. I had to learn the hard way, but by the grace of God and through dedication, hard work, willingness to just be completely open and honest and take direction, I was able to get 5 years yesterday, which again was awesome. It was a pretty special day. My wife actually surprised me. I had my best friend fly out from Southern California. And so that was a surprise. And then we went to a dinner and she ended up having a whole group of people there that are very near and dear to me. And it's just a great way to reflect on what's important in life, you know, and just what sobriety can really bring you. Because when I relapsed, 5 years ago and going into that, I saw how fast things could be stripped away again, including family and friends, and how it's a very self-centered and selfish disease. So, again, just very grateful for what this journey has brought me. But I think one of the biggest things I was talking about at dinner last night, like something that was really a reflection point is, you know, to get this and acquire this last 5 years, it didn't take me this last 5 years. And what I mean by that is it took me these last 25 years to get to where I'm at. Because when I was, I basically entered into struggling with addiction actually way before I ever picked up the drink or the drug, and it had to do with the mental component, the self-shaming, the depression, the anxiety. I had severe OCD, and I just look back at starting that journey at like 11 or 12 years old, and I literally would wash my hands until they'd bleed and have to put neoprene gloves on with Neosporin because they'd get so cracked when I was younger. Never really understood where that came from. Saw doctors, saw psychiatrists. Parents were very, very supportive in that area. But again, saw them, they gave me medication that helped mitigate the symptoms and never dealt with the underlying issues. And, fast forward coming to alcohol and who needs medication. But my whole point is I looking back, it's like, dude, it wasn't just this 5 years, it was a 25 years of experience of having to go through all these different trials and tribulations. But I ended up leaving at like the most grateful thing. I can say, like, I'm so grateful for my addiction because one, God's really important to me. It's a big part of my life. It drew me closer to God, got me to know myself at a much deeper level, which allowed me to be the best version of myself. And so it's kind of like the summarization of it all. It was a really big reflecting point yesterday and just my perception on life.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing some of that too. And congratulations again. And one of the things, you said a couple great things that stand out to me, but the first one I think was, that you got to be around family and friends and realize really what matters in life. This life is so short, and it's really easy to get caught up in the flesh because that battle between flesh and spirit is a daily thing, and it's brutal some days. I have 11 years without alcohol, but it
Let's
doesn't,
go.
and that's great. But like, yeah, I'm super proud of that. But at the same time, like the spirit is sick, man. And we just live in a jacked up world and it's tough some days, and you're battling. But at the end of the day, same thing, those people, my family, my friends is what's so important. So how was that for you to experience that? Just like them celebrating you and not even so much celebrating you, but just supporting you and being there for you on such a good accomplishment of 5 years. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, dude, having my family and my friends there was everything. Like I'd stated earlier, I mean, when we're in active addiction, we tend to hinder and jeopardize a lot of those relationships, and just to feel the love and support
Yeah.
is imperative. But I think you touch on a thing. Just because we're abstinence of drugs and alcohol doesn't mean that we don't have our trials and our own tribulations still in recovery, right? And I think that's really
Yeah.
important. And so it's like I tell people often there's a big difference between being active in recovery versus just being abstinence of drugs and alcohol, because it is a daily thing. It's the efforts and stuff that we put in from the moment that we wake up, and we have the
Yeah.
intentionality to maintain and sustain. And if we don't, we fall back into those behaviors, right? I mean, that's where the dry drunks and the other type of terms that we hear come to play, is when people aren't working a program. And for me, it's not overcomplicating it. I think it's, when I'm working a program, it's something that, consistency and structure creates safety. And I know that works, having little kids, seeing how imperative that is with their routine and their life. It's the same thing as an adult, and it's something that,
Yeah.
that I go through. And so I have that program in order, and I basically have built a structure that and I'm not 100% perfect with it, but when I deviate off of it, I can definitely feel
You
the
could
effects
tell,
of it.
huh?
And so I
Yeah.
know that's when I know it's working. But
Yeah.
I think you hit on a really important part, because it's, it's even like there was a time just this last year, there was a lot that was going on that I had to deal with. This life was happening, right? On life on life's terms. And, but again, it's how we navigate it. It's how we deal with it. It's how we access the tools that we've acquired over these years. And, because a lot of people, think that just because we're sober, life is all perfect now. And
Yeah.
that's not the
Yeah.
case. So, but no, family, friends, it's everything to me, dude. I mean, I'll probably be making amends the rest of my life because of how many people I hurt and harmed, during this. And I didn't have, like, I mean, my duration of heavy use was from 18 to 23.
Mm.
And then, that relapse that I had for a couple years in between this last 5 years in my prior sobriety time, I definitely have some amends. But I mean, that's the core crux of this, dude. How I stay sober is through my foundation, fellowship, service, and God. And fellowship is a huge piece, and that's friends. I mean, on a weekly basis, I participate in church. I have a men's accountability group that I do, and then
Nice.
I also have a Bible study that I have with a core group of guys as well. And like, it's that connectivity. Obviously, I go to meetings and different things, and I participate
Yeah.
in therapy weekly. And but the friends and stuff, man, there's nothing better than being able to have, another buddy that you can connect with, or another group of guys that you can just be open and vulnerable, because everybody's going through shit, man. I think that's
Oh,
that's
dude. Totally. Yeah. And
and so it's
what's a good
please.
point too, just real quick, because I think that's the hard part is so many guys are trying to do it alone. And I can even fall into that sometimes, just being busy with work and like kids and trying to do all the things. And it's like, oh, I'll forget, like, dude, I have to reach out. Like I have to be at my meetings or groups, or, have other dudes to talk with sometimes. And even like one of my closest friends, Seth, like I was talking to him the other day and I'm just like, man, it just feels good to talk again,
Yeah,
like you can't do it
yeah.
alone. It's like, and that's biblical. I mean, that's that we need counsel. You know what I mean? Like we have to have people around us and community around us to be successful. With number one, cutting out addiction, obviously, but then just trying to live life on life's terms and not our terms, which can be difficult.
Yeah, man. Well, I always revert back to like the best of my decision making, looking at where it got me, and it was
Mm,
never a good place, especially when it came to the recovery aspects. And so
yeah.
it's to have the sounding board of other people and that have lived experiences. And look, like, I think one of the greatest, I mean, longest living study at Harvard's around happiness, and that's through human connection. And the more open and
Mm,
vulnerable you can get, the deeper you get to know somebody. And so
yeah.
there's some true connectivity with that. I mean, that's a big part of. It's not some, there's again, it's different strokes for different folks, and what works for me may not work for another person. But like a big part of my program is that connection with family and
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
Um,
That's huge.
and so I like that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, man. I definitely on this show I love focusing more on like what's now and where we're headed. But I do think
Yeah.
it's important sometimes to give a little context. So can you just share a little bit like of your background and kind of what you did go through? What were some of those times like? And then just give me 1 sec. My dog's barking at the door right now. Hold
Yeah,
on
you're
one
good,
sec.
bro.
Let me let him
You're
in.
good. You're good.
Come on, sonny boy. Come on, boy. All right, lay down. All right, he's hanging out podcasting now too. So
The-
yeah,
the-
just some background
yeah,
would be
man.
great though, man.
Just I think a high level overview. I mean, I touched on some of the stuff, when I was younger. But I mean, I born and raised in Southern California. Came from a great family, parents who are still married till this day. They celebrated over 50 years of marriage. Grew up with
Oh,
amazing
that's
morals,
awesome.
value, and structure within the house. There's some pre-genetic disposition in my family when it comes to addiction. I mean, there's quite a few people who struggle with addiction and or mental health. I mean, I am Cherokee, German, and Irish, so I should have had a stamp on the forehead when I came out of the womb saying like, this guy shouldn't be
It's
using
gonna be a tough
anything.
one.
But yeah, I mean, I look at, as I fast forward into my early teens, like I said, struggled severely with the OCD, just the underlying, where do I fit in?
Yeah.
Just again, dealing with the underlying mental health issues. What made that really challenging at that age, because even though I was going through that, like I was able to lean in, like, was a part of the popular groups. I was good at sports. I was athletic, and I was kind of
Yeah.
able to lean into this life that was what people perceived me as, but I never felt that way about myself. Right. And so then I'd go home, be home behind closed doors. I'm dealing with the shame, the guilt, the hand washing, all this other stuff.
Oh,
So like literally living a double life at 12 or 13 years old, trying to be able to explain
mm,
what it is that you're going through. And like I stated, fast forward, saw doctors, saw psychiatrist, was medicated, mitigated the symptoms, never dealt with the underlying issues, come to find alcohol. It's funny. I won't go into the depths of it, but like the first two experiences I had with alcohol and marijuana were like not great experiences. We had time to share the whole story, you'd be like, that would be probably enough to make you never want to do it again. But and I don't remember the first time I got smashed. Like I don't like it's a trip. I remember the first time I had interaction with alcohol with the intention of it.
mm,
But so obviously ended up loving alcohol, became kind of like my best friend, became my crutch, something that I confided in. I knew every time that I encountered with it, it was going to give me the effect that I wanted. Really took me out of context and just out of all the feelings and emotion that I was dealing with. It kind of almost made me feel like I had a superpower. It was like my spinach,
mm,
like Popeye spinach. That was
yeah.
vodka was mine. And then I was casted I mean, I started my journey started struggling at 17, 18. I went to a wilderness program, then I went to a
Mm,
boarding school, came back, uh, ended up going on, was asked, I was wanting to pursue baseball. But my addiction kicked in, had the opportunity to go into a television show called Laguna Beach. 18, my life completely changed, ended up moving up to LA, but basically from the ages of 18 to 23, I went to 12 to 13 different treatment centers from Florida to Hawaii, every state in between, was arrested, multiple times. I mean,
mm,
obviously things really, really progressed. The depths of my addiction not only took me to contemplation, but attempting suicide. And by the grace of God, I'm here. But I mean, so I've gone through a lot of experiences that were very challenging. I mean, just again, is just the heartache of what addiction can do, the situations that it puts you in. Just again, the ruined relationships. And I mean, I grew up as this kid that loved being outdoors, loved surfing, loved skateboarding,
yeah.
paintballing, you skimming, baseball, football, you name the sport, anything that was outdoors, I loved. And I look at like, towards the latter years of my addiction, I mean, just completely isolated and by myself. And I mean, it
Mm,
just, I could see like if you
yeah.
just put an apple in the corner of a room and just watched it over the course of months, just deteriorating, that's basically what
Yeah.
my soul was doing. And you just don't see it. And so, again, is going through all of those things, was obviously very challenging. I mean, I had a moment of clarity that had to do with my family, and it really got me to be a motivating factor and to actually really getting into recovery. And at that point, I didn't want it for myself. Like oftentimes you hear people say that like you have to want it for yourself. Like that's not my
Yeah.
story. My story, because of the great relationship and the dynamic that I had with my family and the connection that I had with my mom and my dad and my siblings and the loved ones that were around me, they became my motivation. Went away for, again, that was the July 23rd, 2010, ended up going away to treatment. They were my motivation. Obviously, after I actively arrested the disease, after I got stabilized, and I started to acquire time and my life started to change. Obviously, for sustainability, it needs to be something that you want long term.
Yeah.
And that transitioned, but I had the opportunity to fight for it again, and because like we said, you lose the right to make your own decisions, right? And so I mean, for me, I had
Mm.
to grab onto something that was there, and then ultimately that became God, and some people it is a higher power or whatever it is at that time that you need to grab onto. But then I really entered into my life into recovery, man, and basically acquired 4.5 years of sobriety. Life was absolutely incredible. But what's predictable is preventable, man. Everything that I had done over that course of to get 4.5 years, all the work that I had done, the program that I was working, I basically stopped doing. Right. And so
Mm.
I ended up relapsing and going back out, and went out on Adderall, which then led to alcohol. And that was a whole nother, that it got really scary then, because I was a person that would drink or use, and it was like 9 out of 10 times I'm getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And this time around, it was the complete opposite. Nobody knew. I perfected it. I was
Oh,
able to take enough Adderall and take enough shooters and like just like
oh.
manage it. And I was interacting with doctors all the time. I mean, it
So
was
you're
it
like
was
really
not
hiding
good.
it. You're really
Like,
hiding it and being able to function, but like which is almost like, I don't know if I argue worse, but it's definitely just as bad
yeah,
because you're alone. Like you're hiding it and you're literally living this huge secret, this huge lie, and like isolation is the worst.
yeah,
I mean, that is the
bro.
worst, man.
It was, to me, it was way worse than the
Yeah.
arrest. All because I mean, that's the thing is like now, like it becomes a 24-hour job, right? And so I'm just like perfecting the way
Yeah.
that I'm doing this now. Like I'm really like the amount that I'm using like is crazy, right? And the fact that I have the tolerance that I did, and it's not like a boastful thing. By no means, it was just it was like a very scary thing how much I was able to ingest without people knowing.
Yeah.
My wife, there's a whole story that with my wife and codependency and different things. I mean, during that time, I ended up literally, I mean, where this ended up taking me was I was at the first floor at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach in detox, where my wife was giving birth to our first daughter, or to our first child, on the fourth floor. And so there's so much that came
Oh,
from that, and just like how cunning, baffling, and powerful the disease of addiction is. I mean, because you would think, that would be enough to stop somebody. And I love my kids more than anything in the world, but I didn't get stabilized, didn't actively arrest the disease, was in detox for 2 days, saw my child be born. And then 3 or 4 days later after that, went back out to the races until I ended up going back into treatment. But I think it's like
man.
looking at all that, it's crazy how this thing can really take hold of you, and how it can rob you of everything, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things you said when we first started, and I'll kind of bring it back to that because it really relates to this. And some people might go, well, how could he say that? Or how could you, think like that? But you said, I'm really grateful for, or something along those lines. I'm really grateful for going through what I went through because
Yeah.
it brought me here to today and it made me the person that I am here today. And it's a difficult thing sometimes to look at our past and be honest, not just with other people, but also with ourselves. Like, I think I was talking
Yeah.
on a previous podcast just about not too long ago. I just like looked in the mirror and I was just like,
Yeah.
kind of like, like, what are you doing? Who are you? Like, I haven't done that
Yeah.
in a long time. And man, it's a crazy thing to be like vulnerable and honest with yourself. And so, talking about it is therapy, obviously, and that helps. But I don't think that we would be necessarily where we're at today if we didn't go through some of that. And then that's where God comes in for me, because now you have an amazing testimony to share with other people. I have a great testimony to share with other people. And there will be one person at the minimum listening to this that this will impact today. And that is an amazing thing. And that's really, in my opinion, why we're here. Like
Yeah. 100%, man.
that's it, other and lead our families, of course. But yeah.
Yeah. No, it's so the question was about being vulnerable. Like, how am I grateful for, what I went through, is what I heard you say.
Yeah, I threw on a mesh of all kinds of crap out there for you, I think. But
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
just, I just was
I'll
kind of
answer that.
alluding to, yeah, going through all that stuff. And like you said, like I'm grateful for my past because that's kind of what brought me here today, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, dude, look, at the end of the day, your greatest deficits can become your greatest assets. And like what I mean by being grateful, and I took like a hard look into this is, look, no, I would not want to have to go through those experiences again by any
Yeah.
means. Like, I mean, I've definitely gone through the ringer, but like being able to look back and have it's perspective and perception
Mm,
on what I've gone through, right? And I think like for those that struggle with addiction and or alcoholism to the severity that we do versus people that don't struggle with it, they're not going to have to do the deep hard look that we have to do to go through those things, like the things that we do. And so like I look back and I'm grateful because again, as I from after about 13 years old, I'd really lost sight of who I was for years, right? And like through
yeah.
sobriety and through that journey of self-discovery, I was able to get to know myself on the deepest level of like I was able to like take that time and be very intentional about like what it is that I was going through and like finding out who I am and what it is that I like and the things that I like to be around and the things I like to associate with. Like I'd lost so much around that. And like if it wasn't for the trials and tribulations that I'd went through, like I would not have been able to take a deep look, versus just
Yeah.
kind of going skating across the surface. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Like,
sure.
and
Definitely.
so like from my side, it's it's like it's crazy to look back and to go through like have those experiences that I did, but like I am so comfortable and content with the person I am today. Like I can
Yeah.
honestly look in the mirror, I can look you in the eyes right now and be like, dude, like I am a good dad, I'm a good friend,
Yeah.
I'm a good husband, I'm accountable, I'm
Awesome.
trustworthy. Like I didn't think that for so freaking long. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah.
was the type of person that would, steal your wallet and help you look for it, bro. Like, I mean, it was just like, you know what I mean? It was like,
Dude, so what is it?
it,
What is it? Is it God? What makes that drastic change like that? Because those are two completely opposite ends of the spectrum right there, that mentality. Both of those things you just said. Like, what was it for you? Or what is it, do you think?
well, I can tell you, I mean, look, dude, the first and foremost and the most important thing in my life is my relationship with God. But the thing that I had to
Amen.
be willing to do is I had to get completely open and honest with myself. That was the
Yeah.
biggest thing. Addiction is a disease of denial. I mean, that's the core crux of this thing. It's the only disease that tells you don't have a disease. And when I was looking at this and just getting to a place where I was completely powerless and willing to accept that I can no longer do this,
Yeah.
and be open to taking that direction is when this shift started to happen, and had to do with peeling back the onion and doing the work. And there was so much, it was just like, God, this is going to be a big uphill battle, and I had to get to a place where I was willing to do that. And like that's where this day and age, and even talking about what I was sharing about, like, is you know people have to hit a bottom. Like for me, I used to believe that whole old school mentality. Like our job today should be to help people stop digging. And
Mm,
so like my thing is by doing these podcasts, and like a big part of it is like to try to provide people the best education, relatability, connectivity, so they can make informed and educated decisions. Like that's
yeah.
the hope
That's
of
good.
this, is like we don't have the power to change anybody, but we have the power to influence change. And so I think again is like that starts with education and knowledge, and like to have this perception and this ability to have that conversation with myself in the mirror and have the confidence that I do. It was through a ton of hard work, and I had to get really real, and it wasn't easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it was having to peel
Hmm.
back that onion and be open, be vulnerable, share things. Like, it's I wasn't a it also was very hard, but it was also very helpful. I mean, this I went through a lot of this stuff publicly. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
go through the
That's
grocery store, check out, and there's another mug shot as I'm leaving, checking out with
wow.
my eggs, like, and so like I was kind of forced to have to go through a lot of this stuff, which again, there's it's a double-edged sword. There was a lot of pros and a lot of cons, and there was a higher level of accountability that was adhered to
Yeah.
from my side. But um, it's I don't
Did you
know,
did you feel very judged going through that?
oh,
Like
dude,
I just
100%.
had this picture real quick of you just going through the grocery store, dude, just trying to buy some milk or eggs or whatever, and like I can imagine that feeling of being judged and is just very very heavy. Very heavy.
Bro, I wouldn't leave my house. I was so
Yeah,
embarrassed.
that's
I had so
crazy,
much
man.
shame, so much. I mean, I'd have to. It's funny. This is how crazy addiction and alcoholism is. Right? Is like the things that got me to the places where I was not able to do things. right? So for example, I'm not willing to go to the, like, I was, got arrested, was so embarrassed, and it was all because of drinking, and
Yeah.
I couldn't leave the house, but I had to drink to go out to leave the house. Like, it was like, that's just how insane it is. Like, it
So
doesn't make
ironic.
sense to an average person. You know what I mean? It's like when you are
Yeah.
in the depths of addiction, dude, it's like a survival gene.
Mm.
It's, you'll do anything to have that, and it's like I couldn't function without it. But the insanity, it's crazy. Like I said, it's like looking back at the way we used to operate, the way we used to think,
Yeah.
it was so distorted.
Yep.
And I mean, that's for me. I mean, besides the fact, addiction is primary, it's chronic, it's progressive, and it's fatal if it's untreated. I mean, that's one of the things that just I look back as just the insanity behind the thinking.
Mm. Yeah, definitely madness, man. Just like mental gymnastics, and even like you said earlier, the effort that it takes to keep that up. It's like a full-time job. It's friggin' exhausting, man. It's totally exhausting. One of
Debilitating,
the
bro.
Oh, totally, totally. One of the things you mentioned earlier, you mentioned skating and surfing and baseball.
Hmm.
Dude, all three things. We have a lot in common with those aspects, and had a lot of fun doing those as a kid. One of the things I love working out with dudes on is just that. Like, we get to this point where, we go down this path that most of us never intended to go down: alcohol, drugs, bad choices, broken relationships, and then just like trying to live normal life too. If we're doing that, work, bills, I think, and we forget what it's like to have fun. We forget what it's like to have that childlike spirit where we're connected to something, God, we're pure. And I used to get a lot of that from skating, from playing baseball, from doing those things. I get chills talking about it, man. It was so genuine,
Yeah.
and we lose that shit when we get older and we start going through this. So, what any thoughts on that? Any comments? Did you get back into any of that as you got sober, and did that help? Because
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things I tell dudes is just, man, find something you love to do.
Bro, your brain produces more potent chemicals than heroin, right? You just got to let it work. And
Yep.
so, I mean, like, I use, like, you catch a perfect wave, you hit a good golf shot, you land a new trick skating, you accomplish
Yeah.
something on the mountain, whether you're snowboarding or you're mountain biking. I mean, those are all things where, serotonin, your dopamine, those things are activated. And the beautiful thing about that is it sustains throughout the whole day. It's not a thing that
Yeah.
you have to go back and get a quick fix again from something. And
Yeah.
it's allowing your brain to heal and to get back to a place to do that. It doesn't happen overnight. You can start slowly implementing that, but like, dude, I exercise, like, so yes, to answer your question, I do a lot of those things. I'll go through a list of that, but like one of the main things that I incorporate now is even exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise 3-4 times a week with the trainer, and it's not because it used to be because I wanted to look good, dude. Now it's
Hmm.
because I want it how I feel. I could care
Yeah.
less how like,
It's
yeah, there's the
mental.
benefit of looking better, but dude, it's, for me, obviously, food is a huge proponent with how you feel. Your gut's directly correlated with your brain. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like right after here, I have a session. It's like a top priority. It's a
Nice.
non-negotiable where I go do these things. I'm sick, right? Like, I mean, I've had this damn congestion and cold and stuff, but it's like, for me, I'm not going to push it hard today, but like, I have to do that. It's like one of those things.
Yeah.
It's just so important to me, unless I'm bedridden, and so yes, that is a huge part of my recovery is exercise. But surfing, skating, snowboarding, taking my kids, like, we're going on a ski trip, next month, like, those types of things are amazing. Just riding a bike, dude, just going out and throwing the ball to my
Yeah.
kids, like watching my
Yep.
3-year-old son or my 7-year-old daughter, just pitching balls to them, like, as they develop and gain skills, like that dopamine, that serotonin, like that is released by seeing them do well, like,
Yeah.
it's awesome, dude. It could be flying a kite, it's, swimming, it doesn't have to be, because I think even with that, like, for relatability, it's like, well, people are like, I don't surf, I don't skate. It's like, dude, try a new hobby. Like, for
Yeah.
me,
Try
I
something
picked
new.
up a ukulele, bro. Like, I mean, the last
Oh,
thing in the world,
nice.
I picked up a
Love
uke.
it.
I was like,
That's
but
sick.
it's just getting outside of the box and trying new things. And I think getting creative, dude. I have
Yeah.
friends that do pottery, that do painting. I mean, there's so much stuff that is out there that you can do and
Yeah.
participate in, and you have to have fun. You have to
Yep.
have fun, man. And like, that's for me going into this new year. Like, I actually just did a whole thing around boundaries. I actually started going to Al-Anon now,
Mm.
because
Nice.
I for just people pleasing and just learning to say no to stuff, right? Like, overcommitting. And my goal for that is in 2025 is to set more boundaries so I can actually have more time, not only with God and my family and stuff like that, but to do things more that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And to be able to take time for myself more, because it's so important, dude. And it's actively participating in life and enjoying it, man. Like you said, it's short.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, man. Thanks for sharing some of that. There's some great tips too. It's my favorite too. Just try something new. Like what's that thing you always wanted to do, but you kind of never had the guts to maybe get up, because especially as dudes too, we don't want to suck at stuff. Like there's nothing worse than sucking, but like at the same time, if we don't suck for a minute and we want to try something, we'll never do it. So you kind of got to suck
Yeah.
as you get the hang of it or whatever, and you can roll into it. And there's a lot of excitement and genuine joy, when you can tap into something like that. Okay. Shifting gears here. Let's talk a little bit about, relationships. And, obviously, for those of us in recovery, a lot of the struggles that we have or challenges can be with broken relationships or past mistakes or even current ones at that too. Any thoughts on how to rebuild trust, how to rebuild relationships? I know you went through some of that yourself. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's ownership and accountability. It's amends, right? It's
Mm,
it's it's making amends, and how I've done that, it's a simple process. Again, with a mentor and somebody that's helped guided me through this process is really identify and take ownership of what the situation was. Schedule time to connect with that person and be able to let them know, like, hey, look, I was not in my right mind. When I was going through these types of things, that's not the type of person that I am. However, I do take complete ownership and accountability, and whatever I need to do to fix it or make it right, let me know.
yeah.
And so again, is I got to keep my side of the street clean. And some people, I very, very rarely, maybe once, have I run into out of the tons of people that I've connected with. And again, it's not like I was trying to be reconnect be friends with all these people or different things, but it was just keeping my side of the street clean and
Yeah.
leaving the outcome. It was all I can do is take ownership and accountability for mine, because I thought there was going to be a lot of situations I'd go into where people are like, fuck you, like you're POS, and
Yeah.
like we don't want to, and that wasn't the case, and a lot of it was just like more people were concerned or worried, and and it was, the response was incredible. But it's one is really taking ownership, but and really meaning it, and making sure that you're going to take those next steps to indicate to fix that and be
Yeah.
prepared. But majority for me is once I was in that place, and I also, for me, it was at a place where I needed to acquire some time. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those things I tried doing in like the first month or 2, 3 months of
Yeah.
sobriety. Like
Takes a minute.
you need to take some time for yourself to focus on what it is that you need to focus on, and then get to a place where you can actually participate and do that, because you don't want to jump the gun on that, and it's best that you're in a good place mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and doing what you need to do before you start to add more things to the plate. But I said, like, and it's cool though. I mean, because now, like, what that has taught me, like the early stages, looking at like how I've had to go back and do the ownership, accountability, the amends, make things right, all that stuff. It's like that's just a part of my daily routine now, dude. It's like if I do something where I'm, or a part of my daily reflection at the end of the night is not only, what I did good for the day, but I also address the things that I didn't do well, and like, if there's somebody I need to reach out to or something that I need to do, so I can go, I reach out and do that in that day, because when I put my head to the pillow, it allows me to wake up to have a fresh start to the day, and
Yeah.
it's a good healthy thing for me to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's there's it's we can make this as complex and as complicated as we want. Again, it's not to say people's stories aren't very multifaceted and very deep, but the
Yeah.
the initiation and the steps that you need to take are not there. They're
Pretty
a
simple.
a 10-year-old could comprehend them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty general at the end of the day. It's just a matter of getting out of our own way usually. Like I'm like my own worst enemy. I've always been like that. And I think a lot of us who struggle with addiction, same, I hear that a lot. Um,
Yep.
real quick, I want to back up. You started getting into the importance of fitness, another big part of my recovery and just life in general too. And I think that's the older we get. Like, yeah, it's like the physical part is great, but it definitely for me keeps me sane and like mentally healthy, spiritually healthy. I mean, there's times when sometimes I'll listen to, some worship or I'll listen to something working out, dude. And I'll just be sitting there like on like a bench or something. And I'll just start weeping, man. Holy Spirit just enters and it's just like, dude, like,
Let's
and
go.
that's the coolest thing, man. And then you get in that mode of gratitude. Like, oh, I'm so grateful that my legs work so I can like do a squat
Yeah.
right now or whatever, right? Like there's all those little things. There's so much more to it than just the physical, I guess is what I'm getting at. But with that, for a dude out there listening right now who, and I talk to a lot of guys who go through this, they go, man, I want to jump back in. I used to work out. I used to be pretty physical. I lost a lot of that over the years. Like, where's a good place for them to start? Any thoughts or advice that you might speak to on that?
Yeah, set up realistic expectation and goals for yourself. If you haven't gone to the gym in a year, don't make a commitment that you're going to go 3 or 4 times a week, dude. Start by putting your
Yeah.
shoes at the front door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not being facetious when I say that. It's like, dude, just go on a walk. Start with that and like build up to that. And I think it's just those little incremental steps, and getting back into it. But I think it's important to understand, like, you want to build upon that. And like, that's what I did is I slowly started going back in, it was 1 day a week, 2 days a week. And I got to a place where I was doing that for a while and I was not really happy with the results or just, what I was getting out of it fully. And it's like, dude, at the end of the day, what you put in is what you're going to get out. You go once a week, you're going to get the results of going once a week. You go 5 times a week, you're going to get the results of going 5 times a week. And so I found that happy medium, but it was a building block, and I know for me, I used to always set myself up for failure. I would want instant gratification. I want results now. I'm going to do everything extreme. That's how I drank. That's how I operated. That's how I acted. And I had to relearn that thinking, dude. It's like, dude, you haven't been in a year or 2 years. Put your shoes by the front door, get dust off those things, put some workout pants there. And it's a reminder just to go on a walk, as stupid as that may seem, but it's like, that's a simple starting point, and it's not even, it's just get one session in today. You know what I mean? It doesn't even, dude, like I said, a walk, getting just doing push-ups and sit-ups, you know what I mean? It's slowly weaning into it and give yourself grace. Just try to do 1% better the next day.
Yeah, it's good. It's back to that whole 1 day at a time mentality, like being present, living in the moment and chipping away a little bit each day. Because that instant gratification is a rough one, man. And we're seeing it a lot in the kids and stuff too, with YouTube and video games. And dude, we have to work really hard with our kids. Mine are 10 and 14, especially my 10-year-old, just because that's just the way that the world, I guess, is today. And so it's tough sometimes to work through that. Things take time. You have to be patient. You got to put the work in. And I love just a walk. I mean, that's some of the greatest advice. Just put your shoes on and go on a walk after dinner for 15 minutes. I mean, that's a great start. And you build a little bit each day on that. Man,
real quick, just so you know,
go ahead, please.
Hard out in 5 minutes, just so you know.
Perfect, man. Let's wrap this up. Let's say this real quick. What is life like today? Being a dad, being a husband, just being a family man, and like, what does that look like for you?
Dude, being a father, being a husband, just being a friend, it's incredible. I love the life that I live today. I'm motivated. I have purpose. I have passion. I love the work that I do. I'm involved with a lot of amazing things, and giving back is a huge part of what I love doing. And life is incredible, man. I mean, like, I truly mean that. Like I said in the beginning, there's life happens. There's hard days and stuff like that, but I love the life I live today, man. I love the person I've become, and I owe that all to God and recovery, and I wouldn't change it for a thing.
Amen. Love it. Where can folks reach out to you or find you if they want to follow you, Jason?
Yeah, dude. I mean, well, people can reach out to me on Instagram. Is probably the best way at Jason Wahler. And one thing I wanted to share too, that's been really cool. I've been working with this new company, which is called SoberSure and SoberSafe. It's the first ever transdermal alcohol monitoring detection band. It's basically 24/7 monitoring, band removal notifications, and GPS tracking, and so it's really good for an accountability tool, especially for those that are coming out of treatment or early in recovery, or for teen drivers. So I highly advise people to check out SoberSure or SoberSafe. It's an incredible product. And it's one of the things that I've been working on. So check it out if you get a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll put all those links in the show notes, sobersafe.com, jasonwahler.com, and Jason's Instagram, so they're easier for you to connect with. Jason, man, congrats again on 5 years. So awesome for you, man. So grateful.
Thank you, bro.
To have you on the show today. So thanks a lot for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today. Share the podcast with a friend. You can find more info at thatsoberguy.com. Peace, love, and respect. Keep your blood clean.